But there's a reason. There's a reason. There's a reason for this. It's the same reason that it will never, ever, ever be fixed. It's never going to get any better. Don't look for it. Because the owners of this country don't want that. I'm talking about the real owners now. The real owners, the big wealthy business interests that control things and make all the important decisions. Forget the politicians. The politicians are put there to give you the idea that you have freedom of choice. You don't. You have no choice. You have owners. They own you. They own everything. They own all the important land. They own and control the corporations. They've long since bought and paid for the Senate, the Congress, the state houses, the city halls. They got the judges in their back pockets. And they own all the big media companies, so they control just about all of the news and information you get to hear. They got you by the balls. It's a big club, and you ain't in it. You and I are not in the big club. By the way, it's the same big club they used to beat you over the head with all day long when they tell you what to believe. All day long, beating you over the head in their media, telling you what to believe, what to think, and what to buy. The table is tilted, folks. The game is rigged. And nobody seems to notice. Nobody seems to care. Good, honest, hard-working people, white collar, blue collar, doesn't matter what color shirt you have on. Good, honest, hard-working people continue. These are people of modest means. Continue to elect these rich cocksuckers who don't give a fuck about them. They don't give a fuck about you. They don't give a fuck about you. They don't care about you at all. At all. At all. Man, you know? And nobody seems to notice, nobody seems to care. That's what the owners count on, the fact that Americans will probably remain willfully ignorant of the big red, white, and blue dick that's being jammed up their assholes every day. Because the owners of this country know the truth. It's called the American dream, because you have to be asleep to believe it.
Hello and welcome back to Piercing the Cube. I want to start this video by saying that this channel is not swayed by partisan politics. The idea that this pedo conspiracy belongs to only one political party is meant to confuse you and throw you off the trail. This is how they control the narrative. They count on you being so caught up in the political theater that you won't notice how they both belong to the same club. This is the curse of the two-party system. It forces us to make a decision. It encourages us to exist as a third-dimensional being, observing reality in 2 dimensions. This is what this channel is about. Ascending to becoming a 4th-dimensional being, where we can observe reality in the proper 3 dimensions. To be unbiased is a state that we should all hope to achieve, to be in harmony with reality. This is why the QAnoners and the Never-Trumpers aren't in touch with reality. They suffer from bias that prevents a conspiracy of this magnitude to be truly understood.
Potentially hundreds of military employees and contractors who may have bought child pornography online but haven't been prosecuted or even in some cases investigated. That's right, you heard me, child pornography. As many as 1,700 names, according to a U.S. Senator, on a list of 5,200 from an internet sting operation overlooked the first time around 4 years ago. Pentagon porn story began in 2006. An Immigration and Customs Enforcement child pornography sting operation called Project Flicker produced payment records of about 5,200 people, many of whom provided Army or fleet zip codes or military email addresses. Subsequently, the Pentagon's investigative branch, DCIS, began going through the ICE list to identify who actually was a DoD employee or a contractor. The investigation, however, only ran for 8 months and only cross-checked some 3,500 names for Pentagon ties, according to a senator. Out of that 3,500, investigators uncovered 264 employees or contractors.
Some serious allegations this morning facing the State Department.
That's right. According to internal State Department memos, the agency might have called off or intervened in investigation into possibly illegal and inappropriate behavior within its ranks, allegedly to protect jobs and avoid scandals. This concerns the time that Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State. We want to get right to NBC's Chief White House correspondent Chuck Todd with the latest. Chuck, good morning to you.
Good morning, Savannah. You know, there's an old saying in Washington that the cover-up is worse than the crime. But in this case, both parts of it are disturbing. Allegations of prostitution and pedophilia, and allegations that those crimes were somehow covered up or not looked into. So the State Department this morning is having to respond to those claims and those investigations of misconduct by State Department officials, including by an ambassador and security agents attached to then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. And the allegations are that these investigations were whitewashed, quashed altogether, and that those orders came from high up.
NBC News has obtained documents related to ongoing investigations into some disturbing allegations involving State Department personnel and at least one ambassador. A State Department memo says the ambassador, quote, routinely ditched his protective security detail in order to solicit sexual favors from both prostitutes and minor children. The memo also says a top State Department official directed department investigators to, quote, cease the investigation into the ambassador's conduct. It's just one of what another document describes as, quote, several examples of undue influence from top state officials. On Monday, a State Department spokesperson not confirm specific investigations.
I'm not going to talk about specific cases, but I can say broadly that the notion that we would not vigorously pursue criminal...
Estimated 2,500 children are kidnapped and murdered in this country every year. Americans, for the most part, are oblivious to what's really going on behind the scenes. I retired from the FBI March 1979. At that time, I was in charge of the FBI Los Angeles Division. I had more than 700 personnel under my command. And in that particular instance, they were taking children out of foster homes, orphanages, Boys Town. These are 2-, 3-, and 4-year-old children before they enter kindergarten. In addition, the children claimed that they were flown into the mountains where they were involved with adults in robes, black robes, chanting candles. They talked about the brown babies who were cut up, actually sacrificed, and flying them to Washington, D.C. for sex orgies with prominent people, including congressmen, senators, and certain people in the White House. And the reason the congressmen and the senators vote for these stupid bills is because many of them have been set up and framed through sex and drugs.
The Finders were a CIA operation, often described as a 1960s-style commune. In reality, they were a cult that conducted brainwashing and used children in rituals. The FBI has now unsealed a 324-page document that details this operation and the U.S. intel community's role in ritual child sexual abuse. After the arrest of 2 Finders members in a separate child abuse case, a U.S. Customs agent became convinced that numerous other children had been abused and that abuse was part of a large, well-organized scheme. Subsequently, in 1993, he has attempted to interest congressional members and the DOJ in his attempt to enhance efforts in the area of child sexual abuse and investigating claims of organized sexual abuse. DOJ review of FBI documents indicates that during the execution of the search warrants by the D.C. Metropolitan Police at 2 properties linked to the Finders group, including a warehouse, they observed a substantial amount of computer equipment and documents purportedly containing information describing blood rituals and sexual orgies involving children, and unsolved murders in which the Finders might be involved. Cursory examination of documents revealed detailed instructions for obtaining children for various purposes. The instructions included the impregnation of female members of the community, purchasing children, trading, and kidnapping. There were telex messages using MCI account numbers between a computer terminal believed to be in that same room and others across the country and in foreign locations. There were pictures of new children and adult Finders, as well as evidence of high-tech money transfers. There was a file called Pentagon Break-In and references to activities in Moscow, Hong Kong, China, Malaysia, North Vietnam, North Korea, Africa, London, Germany, Europe, and the Bahamas. One such document specifically ordered the purchase of 2 children in Hong Kong to be arranged through a contact in the Chinese embassy. Other documents identified interests in high-tech transfers to the United Kingdom, numerous properties under the control of the finders, and keen interests in terrorism, explosives, and the evasion of law enforcement. There was also a set of instructions that appeared to broadcast via computer an advisory to the participants to keep the children moving through different jurisdictions and instructions on how to avoid police detection. A photo album contained a series of photos of adults and children dressed in white sheets participating in a blood ritual. The ritual centered around the execution of at least 2 goats. The photos portrayed the execution, disembowelment, skinning, and dismemberment of the goats at the hands of the children. This included the removal of the testes of the male goat, the discovery of the female goat's womb, and the baby goats inside of the womb, and the presentation of the goat's head to one of the children. There was also a large amount of data collected on various child care organizations. The warehouse contained a large library, 2 kitchens, a sauna, a hot tub, and a, quote, video room. The video room seemed to be set up as an indoctrination center. The organization had the ability to produce its own videos. There appeared to be training areas for the children, and what appeared to be an altar set up in a residential area of the warehouse. Official U.S. Customs investigation reports, which have been completely authenticated by the investigating officers who wrote them, give irrefutable evidence that 1. There was a case of obvious child neglect and abuse involving child pedophile, sexual abuse, child pornography, satanic cult ritual abuse, wherein the perpetrators were caught directly in the act by law enforcement and arrested on the basis of irrefutable evidence at the scene and face serious charges which typically bring sentences of decades in prison. 2. Search warrants were obtained for the finder's cult office in Washington, D.C., and a complete search was enacted by law enforcement, which provided irrefutable pictures, movies, and documents of such abuse, as well as access to the confidential arrest reports on the finder's cult, from the arrests in Tallahassee, which occurred only a day earlier, suggesting very high-level connections to U.S. intelligence. 3. All investigation of the finder's cult by the FBI, U.S. Customs, and local law enforcement was ordered stopped by the U.S. Justice Department on grounds of, quote, national security, and the matter of the finder's cult was turned over to the Central Intelligence Agency as an internal security matter, since the finders is and has been a domestic and international covert operation of the Central Intelligence Agency. 4. Any and all investigation of the finders was immediately stopped. All evidence was suppressed and denied, and the abused children were released back to the adult perpetrators who had been arrested in the act, and the CIA resumed its ongoing covert operations of the finders cult, which is used to procure and produce. The story of the finders cult is the story of the development of child assets used to entrap politicians, diplomats, corporate and law enforcement officials, to sell child victims to wealthy perverts to raise money for covert operations, and to train some of the child victims to be professional operatives and assassins of a totally cold, multiple personality, mind control nature. To date, only one media outlet has dared publish anything about this. In the last few years, there have been more smoking guns proving that U.S. intelligence agencies traffic in children, sell them, and abuse them. Some of these covert operations have been tied to long-term and massive importation and distribution of narcotics into the U.S. by these same intelligence agencies. It would seem that June 2018 culminated a lengthy ritual involving the sacrificing of many well-known celebrities, with a suspicious lack of coverage on the occultic aspects of these deaths. It seems that the general public have not batted an eye at the fact that these wealthy celebrities have all died in the same manner in the past few years under very similar and bizarre circumstances. Perhaps this is because the mainstream media refuses to report on their connections to elite pedophilia rings, which tie directly to powerful people in Washington, Hollywood, and the mainstream media. Musician Michael Hutchence was found dead hanging from a doorknob in his Ritz-Carlton hotel room. According to reports, Hutchence had information regarding a VIP pedophile ring in the UK that was connected to alleged child rapist Jimmy Savile and other high-ranking politicians. Tech pioneer and Reddit co-founder Aaron Swartz was found dead in his Brooklyn apartment. The New York Medical Examiner reported that he had hanged himself also from a doorknob. No suicide note was found. And according to former CIA agent Robert Steele, Swartz hacked into MIT computers and found a huge stash of child pornography shortly before his death. American musician Chris Cornell was found unconscious by his bodyguard hanging from the doorknob in the bathroom of his hotel room. Another doorknob murder. The cause of death was determined to be suicide by hanging. And of course, Cornell's death is surrounded by rumors that he was about to expose key players in the DC pedophile ring known as Pizzagate. It's no secret that him and Chester Bennington, who died 2 months later the same exact way, had begun an organization to help at-risk children. Lincoln Park musician Chester Bennington was found dead in his home in California. His housekeeper discovered his body hanging from a doorknob, and his death was officially ruled a suicide. What are the odds that two best friends who were about to expose a DC pedophile ring died in the same exact bizarre manner? And Chester, apparently, according to the suicide narrative, wanted to die on his best friend Chris's birthday. Swedish DJ Avicii, real name Tim Bergling, died in April 2018 at the age of 28. After his death, it emerged that Avicii was working to expose an elite pedophile ring. One of his videos began to recirculate in which he attempts to expose child trafficking. In 2015, Avicii did release a video for his song For a Better Day, where he shows child sex trafficking taking place and two girls that escape from a man trying to capture them. The video later reveals that the two girls seek revenge on the elite that were running this pedophile operation. And then we have Anthony Bourdain, who died at the height of his career. He was a chef and a TV personality host. He decided to commit suicide by hanging himself from a doorknob, because apparently that's just what you do when you're successful and have a great life. Just prior to being suicided, Bourdain tweeted many things critical of Hillary Clinton. One of his last tweets being, "It's no secret that people who cross the Clintons wind up dead, mostly from suicide." And then for some honorable mentions, we have Isaac Kappy, who was very outspoken against the elite pedophile rings, and he committed suicide in a very suspicious way as well. I recommend everybody, if they haven't done so already, go down the Isaac Kappy, Tom Hanks rabbit hole. It's really good, and it's really, really interesting as well. And then we have Natasha Jate, a Playboy model who uncovered evidence of an international elite pedophile ring, who was found dead just weeks after publicly stating that she was fearing for her life and that she would, quote, never commit suicide. In 2018, the mother of two young children accused high-level politicians, sports stars, and entertainers of being involved in an international, quote, evil beyond your worst nightmares pedophile ring that systematically kidnaps children before plunging them into a life of depravity and ritual rape and torture. On Twitter, she warned she would be killed for sharing her discoveries with the world, stating that if she died in the near future, it would not be a suicide bid, but related to her attempts to expose the high-ranking pedophiles. The famous model attempted to warn the world about the danger of exposing the elite pedophile ring. Guys, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. There's so much more evidence than this. I'm just really scratching the surface here. I really hope that this video made an impact on you. I hope that you feel some sort of concern, that you're not afraid, but that you are informed. That is my goal. It's not to spread fear, it's just to inform. I believe that there's always a way out of any mess, whether it's our personal lives or our lives as a society. I believe there's always a way out. We just have to have faith. If you don't believe in God, then just have faith in your own abilities. If you do believe in God, obviously have faith that He is gonna be there for us and help us when we're ready as a people to change the way society is being run. Thank you guys, and I'll see you in the next video.